not with us, I welcome you to go further on to look at the recording. But just to give you an idea, the first day we explored the effect or not heating properly and using different resources to heat the houses on the health, especially on pulmonary disease. We saw the connection with energy poverty on conditions such as depression, anxiety, marginalization, isolation, and stigmatization. It was underlined how the access to energy is not a commodity, but a basic social and human rights. The second day, we explored the energy poverty under the social factor, asking ourselves deep questions like, is the energy system rationalized? And wondering if we have assumption on who the energy users is. We have approached the understanding. We approached the understanding of the role of identity and the connection of energy poverty with other vulnerability factors, such as disability or gender. Today, we want to focus on the topic associated with economic, but what it is when we are talking about economic. And before giving you our vision for this session, we would like to also know a little bit more from you. What do you think when you think about the economic word? For this reason, we invite you to go on Slido, that I hope it will be visible right now, and reply quickly to this question. Sorry, to the previous one. So what do you think when we talk about economic aspect of energy poverty? I can see something starting, the bills, education, destitution, poverty itself, income inequalities. I'm curious to see some more words coming in from our audience all around. Lack of fundings, vulnerability, competing priorities, injustice. Wow, that Jerry. A lot of different meanings. Poverty underline even more, insufficient targeted, inability to pay bills. Yeah, I see a lot of these topics, and a lot of these actually resonated with the question we posed ourselves when we were thinking about economy. Then we did what it's normally nowadays quite easy. We went to search online what it is economic, the definition. We took a step back and we find this definition. Economic is a social science which takes in many other fields, including political science, geography, mathematics, sociology, psychology, engineering, law, medicine, and business. The central cast of economics is to determine the most logical and effective use of resources to meet private and social goals. Based on the input we received, we decided to look at our speakers and search experiences from the different contents in a broader perspective, to explore what it means invest in human capitals, as much as creating awareness in countries that don't realize they have energy poverty, as far as also finding fundings to try to implement projects. As we said in our statement, energy poverty is a multifaceted challenge that highly depends on the reality at the local level, and each city, region, and then extended to continent and worldwide, have different local experiences to be listened to, and in order to learn from each other. I'm happy today to have here with me different speakers from different continents. We have Laura Lombardo, Paul Muhia, Mohammad Jaber, Nawa Dhakal, Peta Wolpe, and Francesca Passeri. Before leaving the floor to our speakers, I would like also to understand from you what is the vision for this session and what you would like to get from today. I pose you the next question, you can keep the same link. information, inspiration, innovative ways to fund. Interesting. Focus on the global south. Encourage my friend. It's also always a very good thing to support each other. New inspiring example, inspiration, information. That's quite nice. I like this vibe of supporting each other and learning to go on. Experience sharing, mechanisms to reduce energy poverty, gender perspective. Well, some of these topics were also treated in the previous session and will be even more in the upcoming 2 days together with this. But I think we have a lot of ideas. Now I will start introducing our speakers. However, you have the chance to interact with us, to keep us questions. So the session is organized in a way for which we have each speakers one after the other, and then they will open to welcome questions from the whole audience at the end of all the speeches. However, you have the chance to write your question in the chat or to use always the Slido to keep writing your question, and also to prioritize the question posed by others if you agree with what you're asking for. And without other waiting, let's start to introduce the first 2 speakers that I will have their presentation jointly. I introduce Ms. Laura Lombardo, that is the Microgrid Academy Program Specialist for Rest for Africa Foundation, and Mr. Paul Muhia, I hope I pronounced the surname right, that is the Director and Co-founder of Raynow Energy. Jointly today, they will discuss about how to promote the human development as a key factor for tackling energy poverty. Laura, the field is to you.
Thank you, Dora. Thank you so much. I will just share my screen. So to...
We cannot hear you. I think you are muted at the moment.
I can hear. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can. Probably it was an internal problem.
Okay. Sorry, I go again. Okay, here we are. So again, Dora, thank you so much for your nice introduction. We are very happy to be here today and to start with the first topic discussion, which is going to focus on capacity building for renewable energy solutions and specifically investing in African youth and green job creations. This is because as a foundation at Rest for Africa, we focus on, of course, the African continent. So it's going to be interesting to provide a brief introduction, also overview of the African context. Let me know if you can see my screen well, and if you can hear me well as well.
Okay, so, thank you.
Perfect, thank you, Dora. So just to be brief on this, and I will not take much time. These are the data from the latest Africa Energy Outlook. It is interesting to see how in 2021, as per the report from the IEPAW, access to electricity in Africa was lacked for 600 million people, and 970 million lack access to clean energy. Without focusing too much on the data, obviously, as in many other regions of the world, we can say that the situation has been deteriorating since COVID-19. But what is interesting and important to notice is also the trends in African population growth. Obviously, Africa is a young continent with a growing population, which also means a growing energy demand. And over 60% of the African population is under the age of 25, which means that every year more than 10 million young Africans actually enter the job market. So in this scenario, with a growing population and a growing need for and demand for jobs, the clean energy transition and clean energy jobs offer different opportunities and new opportunities for the countries, and specifically for young people, not only related to the direct energy generation and distribution that of course would also take on the energy poverty issue, but also to the productive use of energy. So moving to what is the role of the foundation in this scenario. The Rest for Africa Foundation is a member-driven organization. We work as a bridge between the private and the public sector, and our aim is to enable, to create an enabling environment for renewable energy investments in African countries. So our pillars are policy dialogue, but also partnerships and strategic initiatives, as well as capacity building, which is the focus that we want to have today on our presentation. So I will move into just showing a short video introducing our programs on capacity building. Okay.
Energy. Here's what youth is made of. Pure, natural, uncontainable energy. So much energy you could fuel an entire continent with. I mean, literally. That's why the Microgrid Academy was born. To put us in the best conditions to use our energy, talent and original thinking for our future. And the future of our whole community, Africa. Becoming skilled and conscious workforce able to deploy decentralized renewable energy solutions. Contribute to fill the technical gap and provide other young women and men with access to job opportunities in the renewable energy and rural electrification sector. Attending to different theoretical training in the classroom. Analyzing the energy resources and technologies. Getting both designing and management skills, but also on-field experience in existing power plants. And fueling the growth of Africa with our own pure energy. Believe in youth. Believe in Africa. Believe in the Microgrid Academy.
Okay, I hope everyone could actually hear and see the video, otherwise it would be a bit of a shame. Anyway, this video was a short introduction of our activities in terms of capacity building, as I mentioned before, and it was interesting to see because it is a full overview of the different projects that we have at the foundation and within the Microgrid Academy program. Let me move to the next slide. The Microgrid Academy program is now called Technical and Vocational School, and this capacity building program focuses on vocational and technical training to transfer specialized knowledge and business skills for the deployment of decentralized renewable energy solutions. Our focus is investing in young people, and the objectives of the program, as well as the foundation, is to support the just energy transition in Africa, to create a skilled and conscious local workforce, to enhance access to energy, and of course to foster local entrepreneurship and job creation. And we do so through different pillars, from education to innovation, that really focuses on investing in innovative solutions and participation of young entrepreneurs and youth in the renewable energy sector. So going to the specific of the two programs we want to focus today, the first one is the training per se. So the training activities of our program have been mainly focusing on mini-grid and microgrid, so solar solutions. And we have been working on with more than 1,750 students from 49 African countries to a blended methodology, both online as well as on field and with practical experiences. But I think what is important to be focused here now is not just the technical skills and the competencies that we aim to create throughout our training, but also the opportunities for entrepreneurs, for developing soft skills, as well as the networking opportunities and opportunities for professional development and new jobs. So as we can see from the training impact evaluation, I will not just read all the comments from our participants, however nice and flattering, but it is nice to see and important to see the impact in terms of job placement and career development. So we see that 91% of our participants, our trainees, got new job networking opportunities, 94% got career improvements, and 42% new job opportunities, which stresses the impact of capacity building and investing in training activities to promote also new job creation. So about the second program we wanted to talk about today, this is the Young Talent of the Year Award. It is a program that was born and was conceptualized in 2020, and it started as a natural progression from our training activities when we realized that many participants in our courses, they were actually entrepreneurs willing to engage and to start new projects focusing on access to energy and to solving issues in their local communities. So for this reason, the Young Talent of the Year Award every year supports 3 entrepreneurs through a financial support as well as mentoring activities to promote their professional development. And so far, we have been implementing 3 Young Talent of the Year awards, and we have been promoting over 9 projects with a financial support of 5,000 euros each. Most importantly, again, on the topic of investing in human capital, are the mentoring activities that we have been developing throughout this program with different startups and groups from Kenya and Cameroon. And again, a stress on the networking opportunities, the engagement between our mentors, our mentees, the different stakeholders involved in these activities, and finally the promotion of young talents in international foreign events. This is a picture next to the box referring to our participation in COP27, where we were able to announce and present the 3 winners of the 2022 awards. And of course, this was an important opportunity for them to give visibility to their projects, but also to be in front of a wider audience. And it is definitely one of the added value of our program. And then just to conclude, before passing the word to my colleague Paul, I would like to really stress the importance of the projects that have been developed by our design throughout this program. This is because we talk about solutions that are locally taught and locally developed, which means that they do have a spillover effect that not only lies on access to energy and fighting energy poverty, but of course has a greater socioeconomic impact and relevance. We see many projects have been focusing as well on women empowerment in renewable energy, on water food nexus, with of course as well including agriculture and other sectors, access to energy for rural communities, as well as digitalization of energy solutions, including Internet of Things. So these are some of the key aspects of our programs, but I will now be happy to pass the word to Paul, who is one of the witnesses of our programs and also a young entrepreneur who can better than me provide an overview of the impact of this work.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Laura. So without further ado, my name is Paul Muhia, Director and co-founder of Raynow Energy. It's quite interesting that actually we were founded in 2020 during COVID times, and this was as a result of us joining the Microgrid Academy training program, where we even came up with a project proposal that went ahead to win the inaugural Microgrid Academy, like the Young Talent of the Year award. And with that award, that enabled us to actualize that project, as you can see down below. Just where you see the lighting, Juja. So that was the 3 kilowatt peak system that we developed for a health center that was in really critical condition during COVID times, because it was one of those isolation centers, and they were in urgent need for the energy. So once we finalized this project, we gained more confidence. We were more courageous to handle more projects going forward, and we managed to even move ahead with doing more energy assessment for various health centers across Kenya. So we went to the likes of West Pokot, Nakuru, Ngong, just trying to, to assess these energy needs in these health centers. And it was quite interesting, especially when in Pokot, as you can see, there were cases where there was grid, but the cables were vandalized. And it came to our realization that capacity building should not just be focused on the project implementers, but it should also look at the community itself, because these solutions need to be developed not in isolation of the community, but together. Because this is basically what that community was doing, was they were taking the cables, using them as hanging lines. So at the end, it was a waste of resources. But if they were also engaged, that would have really been important. Next slide, please. So since we won the award in 2020, we've worked closely with the Rest for Africa since then. And we've also been part of a mentorship program. And with this mentorship program, what it has done for us is quite tremendous. In such a case, we moved from just looking at electrification of health centers, small system, and now we are doing large-scale commercial and industrial projects. For example, as you can see, we have various projects as high as 240 kilowatts. So this is a project we're doing just here in Nairobi for the county government to pump water. This is because they've seen a lot of bills because the current grid prices keeps on increasing. So these companies are looking for alternative solutions to power them. So despite there are statistics saying, like, for example, 100% of like urban area in Kenya is electrified, there's still some sort of energy poverty because it's not that affordable sometimes. So people have to look for other solutions. And with the support of Rest for Africa and the mentorship they've provided, we've been able to actualize such kind of projects. Yeah, I think I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of you. I have a quick question before moving to the next speaker. So we talk a lot about capacity building and human capitals. Both of you, Paul, it's an example of someone that you decided to invest on. How do you see investing in the human capital is also specifically useful to tackle energy poverty? And I don't know who the two wants to reply.
Okay. Paul, please, you can go first. Absolutely.
Okay, sure. Yeah, according to me, as a beneficiary of a capacity building program, I would say it's quite essential not just to stop at the training stage, but to move a further step ahead, like to the action stage, whereby, for example, young people do have interesting projects that need to be funded. So combining that aspect of, okay, you've trained them, but can you also grant them opportunity to fund some of these ideas they have, electrify some of their community, and also giving also these young professional an opportunity to also work on real projects. So through various partnerships, you can link them, for example, with companies doing real work out there, so that they can get to actually put into use the training that they have been provided. So for us, like, the opportunity that was given to us has enabled us to provide more impact to the community, because, like, by electrifying the likes of Juja Farm Health Center, we've enabled them to reduce mortality rate there. During COVID times, even neighboring health centers were using that health center just to store their vaccine. So there was less wastage of the vaccines. And if you look at the likes of West Pokot, where, for example, we went, they were just relying on the power generated at that health center, even for communication, basically to bring their phones to be charged there. So it's quite important. Of course, it starts at the capacity building, but let's not stop there. Let's go a step further into the actualization stage.
Yeah, I think, I mean, my perspective is quite similar. Obviously, Paul is one of the people who join our program. So if we cover the full range of activities and also the opportunities and challenges connected to that, I think to wrap up the concept here, I would say what similar to what Paul said, capacity building should not focus only on technical competencies, even though it is an important aspect. So in terms of the energy transition, of course, when we think about energy poverty and tackling energy poverty, we need to think about the different expertise that it is needed in order to guarantee greater access to energy. So on that side, capacity building is vital, is important, but it is also a matter of providing people with the right opportunities. So it is investing in human capital, in the sense of investing in young people, people who are innovators, people who have the ideas that are practical, that are locally relevant, because they are part of a community who is facing different challenges. And in this way, we can make sure that those ideas, if they're promoted through capacity building, through education, even small investment as in our world, but also through a professional and personal development and promotion of young people, these ideas can really be implemented, as Paul said, and be brought to the next stage. And that is important in order to tackle energy poverty and to guarantee that there is a spillover effect, and also that we can move from the local to the country level and then to the global. So this is my personal opinion and the opinion of our foundation as well.
Thank you very much to both. I have also other questions that I will move to the next speaker and reserve it for the last session. I know that you have the time to stay with us through the 2 hours, so I take this opportunity. And now let's move a little bit. So we have seen with how it is investing of human capital, but the next speaker will present to us a very specific situation about what happens when the country has still not realized or completely embraced the fact that there are cases of energy poverty, and that energy poverty is actually a challenge. Mr. Mohammad Jaber is a PhD candidate at University of Miskolc, and he will tell us about his journey to increase awareness about energy poverty in Jordan and how it's going on. Thank you, Mohammad. The floor to you.
Thank you, Dora, for this introduction, and welcome everyone. I'm happy to be here. Just give me a second to share. I think it's shared now. Can you see the presentation?
It seems uploading. We cannot yet see it fully.
Okay. I think my device is stuck somewhere. I cannot see anything. Let me try to fix it. I think now it's working, right? Oops.
Yes, perfectly.
Okay. It's okay. I'm not sure. We cannot start. I think someone else is sharing. I'm not sure. I need to share it again. I know. Okay. I need a moment to open the presentation. Sometimes my device can go in such way.
Let us know. Otherwise, we can share for you, and you can just tell us.
Okay, I think now I can share it. Yes, I think now it's working. Right.
Yes.
So, sorry for this delay. And yeah, as you said, energy poverty in Jordan, it's somehow still missing from the agenda in the on the governmental level. And maybe I will start by telling the same story I told you when the first time we met. That actually, when I started studying energy poverty, I was looking for data, and I remember it was 3 years ago, I think. I sent an email to an official in the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources in Jordan. And, you know, by introducing myself, I was introducing my field of study, talking about energy poverty and requesting some kind of data. And the following day, the reply to that email was a little bit not expected for me. That official told me that very happy to receive your email, but I'm so sorry to tell you that in Jordan we do not have a problem with energy poverty. And the reason for that is that we have 100% electricity access in general. And at that moment, I discovered that, okay, this will not be an easy journey for me as a PhD student or a researcher, and it will require much more work to put it on the agenda, actually. So yeah, as I'm starting here in this chart, electricity access indeed in Jordan is almost 100%. And actually, this is really good, because we know that everyone is having this electricity access. And actually, maybe the reason behind that maybe or almost 90% of the Jordanian population are living in urban areas, and mostly 50% or 45% of the population are living in the capital, Amman. So maybe that's why we have this high level of electricity access. So in terms of electricity accessibility, we are doing good. And also in terms of access to clean fuels and technologies for cooking, we are also doing good. We have the LPG, or the liquefied petroleum gas, pressurized gas, which is used also for cooking and heating in general in those areas. And in the same way, it does a good work. So when I started studying energy poverty, I started from the basics, or let's say something more related to developing countries. To look at it from the, this multi-dimensional phase of energy poverty, because it's really, complex issue. And it started by estimating the MIPI, which is really popular for developing countries to measure how what percent of the population, or how much percentage of the population has deprivation in some energy services, such as clean cooking, indoor pollution, ownership of appliances, and such on. So what I discovered during that period, and actually these data are not yet published, maybe soon, that in Amman the situation is good, which is the capital here in the lightest color. Energy poverty is nearly 0.17, which is relatively low, and that percentage is increasing, going to the south and also to the northeastern part of the country. And here clearly it showed me that we have indeed an issue with energy poverty, and that need to be studied further. So my next let's say task was to pick a county or governorate for Zarqa. And the reason for Zarqa, that I discovered that during 2008 energy census, the percentage of energy expenditure was more than 10% of the income. And after 2008, there was no statistics related to energy specifically. So that was a motive to go further deeper, to ask people how they can deal with or what's energy poverty or fuel poverty in this case. So when asking people about the incidence of leaking roof, down walls, rotten windows, it is almost more than 70% of the population in Zarqa, or at least my sample, says that they have this issue. And we know that when we have inappropriate heating or cooling in the summer, or ventilation in the household, these problems can occur. And also when asking people about the incidence of arrears on utility bills, it is also expressed by them that almost 65% of the respondents say that they have issues in paying their utility bills, which also shows that there is an economic situation with those households to manage between paying their bills or achieving other, life requirements. Also, when studying the ability to keep home adequately cool or warm, it is noted that even in Jordan, I would say that because Jordan is an arid region, and I think for us Jordanian, we care more about summer than winter. So we have to deal sometimes with 45 degrees, or in a heat wave, it can reach a little bit more. So people really struggle in summer in achieving a relatively good temperature inside their households. So almost 30% says that they can keep their household or their home adequately cool. And maybe the reason behind that most of the population use fans for cooling, not air conditioners or central cooling units. The same thing for the winter, the ability to keep warm, but the percentage is a little bit higher. Nearly 50% of the respondents say that they can manage to keep the household warm. Actually, in this part of my research, I didn't deal with the coping strategies with fuel or energy poverty, because it's taken step by step. It's not good to take everything together. So it is also another issue. And we know that in Jordan, we use the small heaters in rooms that work on either electricity or gas. So also it can be an issue to provide a heater for every room at home. And usually in Jordan, apartments or houses are relatively big, large. We say between 125 square meter to 200 sometimes. So I think it's an issue to provide those services at home of that size. And the last part of my study, also to ask people about being able to sleep in the summer or in winter. And as I said before, because the summer in Jordan can be really hot, sometimes people struggle in sleeping when there is a heat wave. And I think we have an issue with efficiency, that households cannot be isolated from outside, so it can get really hot in the summer, even during the night. And almost 65% of the respondents says that they struggle to sleep when the weather is hot, comparing to only 30 or nearly 40% who struggle to sleep in winter. And maybe, as I said, winter in Jordan can be relatively not so cold, but also there are many coping strategies with cold weather, such as using more clothing layers or blankets to be able to achieve a good degree to sleep. And my final slide, I will talk here about the current funding opportunities for energy efficiency, which are supported by the government through the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. Currently we have three main programs. There are programs that support 30% fund to households who want to achieve to transition to solar energy by installing solar water heaters or solar panel systems. The price can be costly of those systems. So through the funding opportunities, mostly it is 30%, and the 70% are paid by the household owner itself. And there is another program. I think it was finished or ended last year or 2 years ago. It was supported 50% of fund to households. And there is also the LED lighting units distribution program, which is successfully distributed more than 100,000 units in all areas of the kingdom of Jordan, for sure, during the years from 2015 to 2021. And there is also this program for the poor, which support the household 100% of the cost of solar water heaters. And currently there will be a new project for also the poor who want to install solar panel systems, but with some restrictions and some conditions of the households that we could consider poor in general. So in terms of energy poverty, yeah, the question was, do we have in Jordan energy poverty? In general, yes, but it's not related to electricity access. It is related to issues such as affordability and sustainability, almost economically. And this is my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mohammad. It was very interesting to see your journey to start collecting data and information to create an awareness and sensibilization. I would like to ask you, before moving to the next speakers, how do you think the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources or other ministries, along with the private sector, civil society organization, can work jointly in tackling energy poverty? Do you think they will be sensibilized by your work or how they can be engaged? And if you think the main challenge is now to find the fundings to address new activities, or there is still a lot to work on awareness raising?
Actually, the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources can play a really important role in promoting energy poverty alleviation programs. But first of all, we need to understand what is the situation of energy poverty in Jordan. My work can be a start, and maybe we need more data to understand the situation, how to define it. I know that it is somehow my task to define energy poverty within the context of Jordan. After that, yeah, it is really important to develop energy poverty alleviation strategies, and this can be by the help of provide a clear roadmap to addressing energy poverty, and also mobilizing resources, because current funds actually I think it's focusing only on energy efficiency, reducing our carbon footprint, and because this is mostly what we see in the reports, that yeah, we are supporting these systems to households, but mainly I guess it is not available in for the poor in the cities, because 100% programs are only for rural areas and also remote areas where the network cannot reach those households. So it's a little bit complex and complicated. Private sector can also help civil society by building capacity and also bridge the gap between the government and the society, for sure.
Thank you very much. Maybe it's a matter to combine the information and the funds available on the other side.
Thank you.
Let's thank you, and stay with us for additional questions later on. Let's now move to another reality, Nepal. We have with us Mr. Nawa Dhakal, that is the acting executive director of the Alternative Energy Promotion Center in Nepal. And today he will present us the connection of renewable energies and energy poverty and his experience addressing specifically energy poverty. Thank you very much for joining us, and I leave the floor to you for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Thanks to the organizing colleagues for this opportunity. I'm very pleased to be part of this initiative. So let me first share my screen. Is it visible to you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So basically, my presentation today will highlight on the Nepal's energy situation and energy resource potential, major policies, strategies that we have adopted for promotion of renewable energy and energy efficiency, and then key priorities on energy sector and role of renewable energy technologies in reducing energy poverty. This slide basically compares our energy supply situation data from the year 2010 to 2022. As you can see on the left chart, in the year 2010, the traditional sources were contributing more than 87% of the total energy supply of the country, which include fuel wood, animal dung, and agro residue. The commercial sources, namely petroleum, coal, and grid electricity, supplied more than 12%, while the renewables, the biogas, microhydro, and solar energy was supplying less than 1% of the total energy supply. In 2022, there is a big change. As you can see, the contribution of traditional sources has reduced to 65%. The commercial sources increased to 32%, and renewables also increased to 3% of the total energy supply. Even there, the main issue is traditional sources still contribute a big share of the energy consumption. And in the commercial, the coal and petroleum has grown dramatically. Both the energy sources are fossil-based, and both are 100% imported in the country. And we are mainly aiming to increase the contribution of the grid electricity and the renewables. Further going down into this petroleum products, the fossil fuels, the import of fossil fuels is increasing really dramatically, and it is making a major negative impact in the country's foreign currency reserve, as most of the foreign currency reserve is being spent for import of the fossil fuels, the petroleum products. If we just compare the data for 2021-22 from the previous year, the rise was really alarming. It was more than 88% in a single year, but it may be due to the situation that in 2020-21, because of COVID, there were a lot of the activities consuming the petroleum were quite low, but in the following year, the economic activities restarted and the import has increased dramatically. But even in the normal situation, the import of petroleum products is growing by more than 25% in regular year also compared to the previous year. Looking at the electrification and cooking energy situation, first in the electrification, the installed capacity of the electrical power systems is 2,435 megawatt, of which a grid connected hydro is the major source, 2,227 megawatt. Grid connected solar is more than 68 megawatt. Thermal is just 53 megawatt. Cogeneration 6 megawatt. Renewables 80 megawatt. That includes mainly micro mini hydro and solar and wind. Although the grid connected hydro is also mostly run of the river type hydro, and it's renewable energy, but here in our case, we have defined small scale renewables only as a part of the renewable. And grid electricity access is 95% of the households for the year 2022, out of which grid covers 81% and off-grid solutions cover 4%. Electricity consumption per capita is 350 units per capita per year, which is one of the lowest in the region. In the cooking side, more than 1.5 million household into cook stoves and nearly 500,000 household biogas systems have been promoted. But in the recent year, the use of LPG is really growing, which we intend to limit, and more than 53% of the households are still depending on the traditional biomass as their primary cooking fuel. In terms of renewable energy potential, hydro has a quite big potential in Nepal, according to the recent report by Water and Energy Commission Secretariat, WEX. The economic potential of hydro is more than 72 gigawatt. Solar, in terms of solar also, we are very rich. So we have 6.8 sunshine hours per day in average. And the average solar insolation is 4.5 kilowatt hour per square meter per day. According to one study done by Solar and Wind Energy Resource Assessment in 2008, we have 3,000 megawatt of wind potential, but it needs to be further validated and studied. And in terms of bioenergy also, according to one study, we have potential to go into more than 1.9 million households with domestic biogas, but there is also potential of developing biofuels and biomass. In terms of the policies and strategies that we have adopted, Rural Energy Policy 2006 is the main guiding policy that guides us for developing small-scale renewable energies and providing modern energy services, especially in the rural areas. Grid-connected alternative and electricity development guideline supports us in terms of grid connection of small-scale renewables. Central Renewable Energy Fund Operation Manual is mainly for channeling the subsidy, credit, and viability gap funding for the development of sector. Renewable energy subsidy policy and renewable energy subsidy delivery mechanism are the key implementing instruments that APC is using for large scale for the wider proliferation of small scale renewable energy technologies like micro mini hydro, solar, wind, biomass, cook stoves, into water mills, etc. Biomass Energy Strategy 2017 basically guides us towards using the modern and efficient as well as sustainable, using biomass in the form of modern, efficient, and sustainable way. National Energy Efficiency Strategy 2018, I'm sorry for the typo, really guides us about making the energy efficiency a priority. And the National Climate Change Policy talks about climate resilient development of the country. The second nationally determined contribution, which was submitted to UNFCCC as per the requirements of Paris Agreement, has made different priority sectors, and energy sector is one of the key priority where there are targets in terms of energy generation, modernizing the transformation of transport sector by introducing electric vehicles and clean cooking in the households. The long-term strategy for net zero emissions 2021 aims to achieve net zero emission by 2045, where adoption of clean energy pathway is the key. The financial act that is put forward every year together with the budget announcement has provisions for exemption of tax and valuated tax and other taxes for RE systems. Alternative Energy Promotion Center is the government's focal agency for the promotion of renewable energy and energy efficiency in the country. It was established in November 1996 under the purview of then Ministry of Science and Technology, but currently we are under Ministry of Energy, Water Resources and Irrigation. This agency is also accredited by Green Climate Fund as direct access entity. And we have been working with various development partners, provincial and local governments, academia, private sector, government organizations, national and international and NGOs, as well as civil society organizations for promoting modern energy services to the rural people and for making renewable energy mainstream supply to the country. Talking about the role of renewables in the energy poverty, there are few instruments or initiatives that we have taken forward, and we have used them as tools to promote renewable energy for reducing the energy poverty. The renewable energy subsidy policy and delivery mechanism, which I briefly mentioned earlier, really makes targeting for the rural areas for providing modern energy services and creating rural employment, as well as enhancing the livelihoods of the households, mainly in the rural areas, by providing modern energy services. And it has also provisions of additional subsidy to the special target groups. And the special target group has been defined as single women, low income and natural disaster victims, and socially and economically disadvantaged people. So on top of the regular subsidy that this renewable energy subsidy policy provides for regular households, there is a provision of up to 10% top up for such special target group households. And we have been making the partnership with the government and development partners for developing and implementing special projects and programs, especially for electricity access, clean cooking, powering health, education, agriculture, providing drinking water and irrigation facilities, as well as improving the energy mix and reliability, where we have some special programs targeting the special segments of the society, or targeting special service category for providing modern energy services. For example, solar mini grid and irrigation, waste to energy, mini and micro hydro, a few examples which have been implemented in collaboration with the development partners, including Asian Development Bank, World Bank, UK8, KFW, GIZ, and UNDP. Also in the past, Denmark and Norway used to be our major supporters, major development partners who supported us from 1999 until 2017. Finally, mobilizing international finance and innovative financing mechanisms is another sort of initiative or tool that we have been using. APC being the direct access entity to this year, we have been working on a long list of project pipeline. So first project we have already developed and got approved from Green Climate Fund is the project on clean cooking solutions, which basically aims to provide clean cooking solutions like electric cooking, biogas, and improved cook stoves to the households in suburban and rural areas of the Tarai region of the country, providing modern energy services through innovative mechanisms like Sustainable Energy Challenge Fund is another way that we have recently adopted. So through this SECF mechanism, we have been supporting the renewable energy projects development, mainly through the private sector. Through our initiatives and by providing modern energy solutions to the people, we are contributing directly towards reducing the energy poverty. Of course, our main aim is to provide modern energy services, but that has directly contributed towards reducing the energy poverty and filling the gap of life between urban and rural people, or the big economic gap in the urban and rural areas, and ultimately contributed towards uplifting the livelihood of the rural people in the country. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thanks to you for this interesting presentation. I have a quick question before moving to the next speaker. So you mentioned the access to the Green Climate Fund. Which challenges do you face to access to this international fund, and especially when we're talking about combining energy poverty together with renewable energies and other climate change needs?
Thank you. When we develop projects for Green Climate Fund, there are areas that Green Climate Fund has identified in terms of climate change mitigation and adaptation. So 8 areas that they have defined, and we have to develop projects under those 8 areas. But the main challenge is the capacity, because of their very high level and robust requirement in terms of preparing the project and program documents, and because of the lack of that level of capacity at the country level, that is the one challenge. Second is they also have this co-financing requirement from the project proposers or the direct access entities, which is also a challenge. Our government is always in the sort of resources, and without putting a good amount of co-financing, it's difficult to get the projects approved by them. And thirdly, especially in the mitigation side, actually we being an agency working mainly on renewable energy and energy efficiency, most of our projects fall in the mitigation side, but Green Climate Fund is mainly targeting the projects in adaptation side for providing grants, whereas the mitigation projects, they see, there is a return because of the implementation of project, and there is, low level of, preparedness for putting grants into the mitigation project. So these are some of the challenges.
Thank you very much. Maybe in the next speech or with the question, we will have the chance to discuss a bit more how you can find this other co-financing through other resources. Let's now move a little bit to the next speakers. The next speaker is Ms. Peta Wolpe. She defines herself humbly as a urban energy and climate change practitioner, but her experience is much wider, especially gained in the South African area and sub-Saharan Africa. And she has been directors of NGOs. She has been working extensively on the topic. And today with us, she will enter into details about the South Africa perspective and the connection with energy and energy poverty. Thank you, Peta, and the floor to you.
Thank you. Okay, slideshow. Can you see and hear me? Okay.
Yes, both.
So the question that was asked of me was to look at what funding, what does funding energy poverty mean? How do you do it? What are some of the opportunities? And I think when you're looking at this at the South African context, you can't answer it without giving a picture of the South African context. So for those people here today, and hello to everybody, and thank you for inviting me. If you know the context, I'm very sorry if I'm just repeating what you know. So I think it's really important to say that our economy is built around what is known as a minerals energy complex, which has its origins in coal, still very much a coal-based economy, and has its origins in the colonial and apartheid eras, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. So cheap coal led to coal-fired electricity that led to cheap electricity that in turn led to the development of mining of minerals, steel, and other energy-intensive industries. Plus, particularly during apartheid with sanctions, they turned coal to liquid fuels to provide liquid fuel in the country, and that's the Sasol plant. Eskom is our vertical monopoly, and the power utility, and they produce about 87% of electricity is coming from coal. I don't have time to go into a lot of the detail, but some of the power stations are very old and being decommissioned and repurposed. We also have what's called load shedding, which you may or may not have heard about, where Eskom is not generating enough electricity, and so we have I mean, at the moment, we are having 10 hours a day of power outages, which includes nighttime, but that's like quite hectic for business and for managing energy poverty. And I think, you know, there's been a lot of media coverage around Eskom in financial crisis, the corruption and state capture that I'm sure you're all familiar with, lack of transparency, but that's a whole different presentation. But interestingly, Sasol and Eskom account for 50% of our greenhouse gas emissions. So that tells you quite a lot. So in 1994, South Africa entered into the new South Africa, the democratic South Africa, after the end of apartheid, and the high on the country's agenda since democracy has been managing poverty, inequality, and unemployment. And because of state capture and many other reasons, poverty is high, as you can see, 55%. We are one of the most unequal countries in the world. Our unemployment is off the radar. The figure there is the official figure. The unofficial figure is way higher, with youth unemployment sitting at 65%. So we have youth who've never worked, probably won't work. And then we have a figure, a link to all of this is the 47% of the households are considered energy poor. Now, the survey that brought that number was done in 2013 or 2014 by the then Department of Energy. It's a little bit out of date. I suspect the figure is higher. So, you know, we've heard a lot around what is energy poverty, and we all know that we all require energy for very basic human needs. So I think often we think of energy poverty as a lack of access to reliable and safe energy choices. And Mohammad, I was interested in the Jordan example where you said that when you approached I think you said Department of Energy, said, no, there's no energy poverty. We've got 100% access. In South Africa, it really isn't just about access, it's about affordability. So in 94, when the ANC came to power, 36% of the population had access to electricity, and those were white people predominantly. What started in 94, 95 was an electrification program, which is really impressive, actually. You know, we now sit with about 87% access, which is pretty remarkable in a short period of time. The goal was 100% by 2014. That has not happened. And we have growing urbanization in the country. So poor people are coming from rural areas seeking employment and better livelihoods. So we've had a mushrooming of what are called informal settlements, which are shacks that are built on unproclaimed land. That means it's land that's not available for basic service infrastructure. We've also got a growth of what are called backyard shacks or backyard dwellers. So we had, along with the electrification program, was a drive to provide housing, so low-income housing. It was called, they're called RDP houses. I'm not going to go into the detail of that because of time, but often what happens in certain areas, a shack will be built next to the formal house, and they'll run a cable from the main house to the shack, and that electrifies another family. We have high levels of illegal connections, and along with that, electrocutions. And so where people might have electricity or might not, they are using multiple other fuels. Many are unsafe in order to meet their energy needs. So we see in an informal settlement, for instance, should a fire occur, and that happens so regularly, it's like a domino effect. All the shacks burn down. People are left with absolutely nothing. People will buy small amounts of paraffin to cook with, and they because it's cheaper, you buy it in an empty Coke bottle, and then we see large children who ingest thinking it's a Coca-Cola, and then we have big problems around sort of poisoning and health issues. In the sort of coal region, Mpumalanga is where all our most of our coal-fired power stations are. Air pollution is just off the radar. A lot of asthma and respiratory diseases. This is a picture of a woman who's collecting wood for alternative energy. So now you've got to think about the gender perspective, because the women might have to walk quite far to get their wood or even coal. And these photographs are by Dalen Paul, amazing photographs from Mpumalanga that he did. So this is also in Mpumalanga. That's, I think it's Kamati or Hendrina Power Station. And this is an informal settlement, no electricity. I mean, it's quite amazing right there where all the infrastructure is. But I think Nawa, you mentioned, or somebody has mentioned about the percentage of income that is spent by a low-income household. The official figure is around more than 10%, as you mentioned. But actually, when you start digging in and talking to people, it's 20%. Compared with somebody like me, it's 2 to 3%. That's huge differences. Am I all right on time, Dora? Okay. So okay, what are the economic opportunities? It's quite complicated here. South Africa has many amazing renewable energy, poverty alleviation policies on the table, but we have the policies, we're not really implementing at scale, and part of that, in my view, is to do with the political economy of the country and the tie into the minerals energy complex. Part of it is around capacity, and we've heard other presenters talk about human capacity as well as financial capacity. But let's look at what is on the table, and then I'm going to finish with some of the innovative projects that have been brought in. So my sort of focus is at the municipal level, partly because national government makes big policies, but it's really local government within the South African political space. They are the implementers. Their role, their mandate is to be developmental, to bring economic development, promote economic development, to alleviate poverty, to provide basic services. The problem in South Africa, and I don't think it's just here, is that the way in which the fiscal framework works is that they actually have to generate a lot of income. And a lot of that is through sale of electricity. And as we are, A, sitting with increasing electricity prices, B, the hectic load shedding, we are finding mid to high income and businesses beginning to put solar PV on their roofs, and the cross-subsidization and the income is diminishing. So just keep that in your mind's eye. But government introduced free basic electricity subsidy in 2003. What they did was they provide 50 kilowatt hours of electricity per month to what is classed as an indigent household. Say more about that in a minute. Later, they introduced the free basic alternative energy for non-electrified households. It's been less successful because way more difficult to roll out. But somebody, I can't remember who, I think I know, in the questions, the question that Dora, you asked at the beginning, somebody talked about choose heat or food. In South Africa, obviously, when our climate does get cold, but it's not like Europe, say. So what the choice here is basically food or energy. So it's not heat, and it's food or electricity. So we have that government introduced basic income grants, which are not very high. And what our research is showing is that many people are using those grants, which is for food, to supplement their energy needs. It's really, it's quite a critical issue in my view. So, you know, we can't just point a finger at municipalities. We've got communities, and I think somebody else talked about multi-dimensional. We all have to work at this. So they do get grants from national government, but they are really struggling to balance their books. Decline in economic growth, high electricity prices, the cross-subsidization problem that I spoke about earlier. Then, you know, who receives free basic electricity is also highly complex. How you are registered as an indigent is just not working. And some people are excluded because of the complexities and errors, and other people are getting it, they shouldn't. And there's no, so local government they roll out free basic electricity, but actually ESCOM, whilst they are responsible for the bulk of generation, although we do have some renewable coming increasingly into the space. I'll say a little bit about that in my last slide. They also own the transmission grid, but they share distribution with municipalities. But the FBE is in the municipal domain, and they even roll out to ESCOM. It's a mess, actually. And there's no actual legislation or mandate on addressing energy poverty. So when we talk about economic opportunities, it's not straightforward. So there have been discussions on community or socially owned renewable solutions. And none have been implemented. I'm going to say a little bit more about that in my last slide, which is the next one. There have been on the ground amazing solutions. There are some amazing champions here that are developing funding or using innovative mechanisms. So the Maypole system, which you can kind of see in this slide. So it's in an informal settlement. It was a Cape Town municipal official. He put up, what they can do is put up a transformer on a pole, and it services a number of households. And it's been rolled out pretty successfully in informal settlements. Then there are a number of drives around efficient cooking, which some people have spoken about today. The Wonder Bag, I don't know if any of you have ever heard of. I should have put a picture up on it. It's like a little duvet, a round duvet with a lid, and you bring your pot of rice or whatever to the boil, and then you put it in the bag, and it will carry on cooking or stew, and it saves energy, and that's been rolled out. What I forgot to put on here is the RDP houses, when they were first built, were built without ceilings, so no thermal insulation. That's retrofitting has been driven by some of the more well-resourced, bigger municipalities. So there's amazing work happening. So investment. I don't know how familiar people are with the 8.5 billion that was came up out of COP26, where France, Germany, I don't remember all the countries, UK, I think, and America pledged 8.5 billion to South Africa. In the last year, the Just Energy Transition Investment Plan has been developed, and I want to go to look at my notes. So the investment plan, although a lot of it is concessional loans, so we're not talking about donations here by and large. So there's a lot of money has been pledged, well, in the plan, in the investment plan, for skills development, which is quite critical here, you know, in terms of reskilling coal miners, for instance, or other people into driving the renewable energy project, which would and can have an impact on poor households. You know, for instance, there have been programs that have driven the solar water heaters in these low-income households without electrical backup, but it's not worked because there was no maintenance program. People can be skilled in that, which would really help. Then there's money in the investment plan for municipal capacity development, which is really important. There's We have the SORM is the South African Renewable Energy Master Plan. We've got our big auctioning program, the Renewable Energy Independent Power Producer Program. But you see, that's where it becomes complex with government, because it could have been rolled out. You know, we've got masses of renewable energy potential, and it's not being done for political and economic reasons, in my view. And so we sit with 10 hours of load shedding. I mean, it's quite hectic. In a middle-income country like this, I mean, if you look at sub-Saharan, other countries in sub-Saharan Africa, they don't have that. I really want to mention is so I haven't talked about the just energy transition, but it's obviously linked to energy poverty, and some of the work that I've been doing, it's very clear people need education and awareness. Municipal officials say we need help on this. That's where there needs to be investment. You talk to people in the community, they're crying out for information. So if you're a poor person and you have no food and very little access to clean energy, your priorities are not about the environment, and yet they're interlinked. So also where somebody doesn't have enough or any electricity, they might buy candles or paraffin or LPG gas, but they don't know what the costs are, the bigger picture costs. So it might be cheaper, actually, rather than buying 6 candles to buy another energy source. So people need information, and most important, and with the just transition, and that I forgot to put as my bullet here, is you can't talk about alleviating energy poverty if it's top down. And the whole point of the just energy transition, if you really talk about the justice side, is to bring the people that are affected on board in making the decisions. And that to me is really critical. We need lots more research, and I had wanted to show you a 3-minute clip from a documentary, but I'm pretty certain I've used up all my time. But I think you'll make it's a 26-minute documentary on the just energy transition in Mpumalanga, and it gives you that some of it talks to some of the solutions, and there are. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you very much. I think maybe we can make the video accessible through the website channels for people that want to go and look deeply into it. Yeah. Before moving to the next speakers, also for you, a very quick question. So you show that South Africa has a very different perspective and different elements combining. So why do you think it's important to look at the South African context when we talk about financial opportunities addressing energy poverty?
I think a lot of, I've kind of answered that in the last point I was making. You know, it shouldn't be top down, and you might get money to roll out more housing, and housing, say, with ceilings, and but in a country which has been beset with corruption, where the spheres of government and the communication, even this just energy investment plan, it's got to be rolled out very carefully and with the knowledge of the context of what's doable and how to get people engaged so that it isn't top down. I don't know if that answers your question a little bit.
Yes, thank you. I have some other, but I said later on.
Okay.
Let's move to the next speaker. It is with us Ms. Francesca Passeri, that is the Deputy Director of EUROCROWD. Thank you very much for waiting. All our speakers take their time to explain their specific situation. And today, Francesca will explain us, introduce a little bit about the potential of crowdfunding. Thank you, Francesca, and the floor to you.
Thank you all. Thank you for the invitation indeed. And thank you to all the previous panelists for being so thorough in highlighting their specific context. It is indeed something that is quite new to me. I represent a specific sector of the financial industry, which is the one related to crowdfunding. And we also have quite a limited or well-defined geographical coverage, which is Europe, as you can understand from the name. So to hear all of these other approaches or context-related and specific issues, preferences, was really interesting. So before I move on to the core of my speech, Dora, how much time do I have at this point? You update me and I can make it short.
Well, I decided on purpose to leave more floor to the speech because it's very peculiar. It's a country. So I will say another 10 minutes you still have available, and then we wrap up with a common question before closing.
That sounds perfect. So I actually will not display any slides because I rather have this as an actual conversation, as if we were all physically in the same room. So just a short introduction about EUROCROWD. We are a European network that, contrary to the parties that have intervened so far, does not focus on energy topics. We focus on access to finance through crowdfunding. So our core membership and our core mission is to support the knowledge, the innovation, the promotion of crowdfunding as a viable financial mechanism to access different opportunities that, of course, are related to access to finance and funding for companies, but there's also a range of other benefits connected to it. Because if you think about it, and if you're a little bit familiar with crowdfunding, this is a mechanism that is disruptive if you think of the more traditional financial landscape, because the idea of crowdfunding is indeed of gathering funds and attracting finance from a large crowd of individuals, which is generally never the way that works in the more traditional financial sector. So this empowerment that can actually go to individuals through this funding mechanism is something that has pushed us to move in many different directions, to explore synergies with different partners in many different areas. One of these areas is indeed the topic of energy in general. So ranging from renewable energy, energy efficiency, up to, of course, the topic of how to tackle energy poverty in different lights, in different aspects. So I think that the real contribution that crowdfunding can make to the topic of tackling energy poverty is indeed the fact that it can open up a range of new approaches, of new solutions. And I would like to just pitch a few to you of those that we have explored so that they can be enlightening, or I hope inspiring. And because I was hearing in the previous interventions from other speakers about academies and funding and co-financing problems. So we have been lucky enough and privileged enough in EUROCROWD to work with partners already in taking the first steps to try and approach and tackle those issues. So one, of course, we've been working in the topic of energy efficiency and renewable energy since 2015 through what was then an intelligent energy funded project in which the aim was to develop an aggregator of crowdfunding campaigns that would provide funding towards let's say, the building or the establishment of clean energy production sites. So since that time, a lot of things have changed. We have approached the topic of how to externalize, for example, the burden of the investment in a context of social housing where the building needs to undergo a deep retrofit intervention. So this might seem very technical, but the core of the question is, can we use crowdfunding to externalize the investment way and lift this burden from the shoulder of more fragile parts of the population that cannot take it on them? Can we use crowdfunding to shift this towards other investors that are not necessarily institutions? They can be peers, fellow, or other individuals that are in a better financial situation and that can actually see this as an opportunity not only for financial return, because of course crowdfunding is, you know, the usual mechanism in which you get some gadget in return, but it's not only that. There is a European regulation that will actually come into force in November this year, and there we will see how the financial parts of crowdfunding, so loans and investment-based crowdfunding, can be disciplined and activated at the European level. So by involving private individuals in a crowdfunding scheme that aims at supporting the development of specific initiatives in any area, and even more so in the area of tackling energy poverty or providing clean energy, renewable energy to a widespread audience, can crowdfunding be used in this sense, and how? And this links me also to what was mentioned by my fellow panelists earlier, because we know that crowdfunding is out there. We know that somehow it can be used to finance things, projects. But what we have noticed, and we know this because being this the core of our work, we come across this misperception of crowdfunding quite often. So the first misperception is crowdfunding is always used to finance small projects. So it's only suitable for, I don't know, music festivals or for donation based project. It's not. It's so much more than that. There is lending, so loan-based crowdfunding, investment-based crowdfunding, and these are actually two mechanisms that can be plugged into more extensive financial schemes, which leads me back to the point of how heavy a co-financing mechanism can be on potential final beneficiaries when, in order to access public funding, you are required as a beneficiary to co-finance that. So if you think about it, I can't remember who was mentioning this, but they were mentioning it's a challenge. It's preventing them from accessing the public funding, and we need to find new ways to attract private finance. So this is one of the cases in which we have actually started to study how can we combine these two things so that that part of private finance does not have to come from, pass me the word, the pockets of the beneficiaries, but can be a joint venture also with other stakeholders. And this also brings a change in the governance mechanism, in the paradigms of interaction that there are between the key beneficiary, the surrounding, the impact that is being produced and that is being understood by the external community to the point that they're willing to finance that in advance and maybe get some financial return, but for sure get some, let's say, environmental benefits to improve the overall situation. So these are all the things that, you know, need to be explained. And we are well aware of this. This is a technical topic. This is a still unknown aspect of finance, but it's there. It's been there for some time. It's been more difficult in the past. It's becoming more accessible in recent years, but even more so in the future months. Another thing that was mentioned before, for example, and that we have worked on is how do we support municipalities, public authorities? They don't have the sufficient funding to finance this type of interventions. Well, we have worked with them as well. We have worked with them because they are also interested in another type of use of crowdfunding, sometimes in synergies with their own public budget. And we have found out that when a public authority calls its citizens to contribute and participate for initiatives that are co-designed and accepted and discussed, so they are willing, when a public authority is willing to engage at a different level with its citizens, citizens are more willing to contribute. Not only, it's more difficult when they're just the final beneficiary and they are being told what they get. It's way easier, and we have seen much more engagement if they're involved since the very early stages. And we have worked with different municipalities. Just have two in mind: municipality of Milan, municipality of Venice in Italy, but there's many more examples. We are also studying with the European Investment Bank how this can be matched actually with both European Regional Development Fund and European Social Fund. So it's actually something that could be scaled up and wants to be scaled up. And then as a last point, and then I promise I will close, I just wanted to comment on the fact that, according to me, I'm sure that there is a lack of funding. I agree. I agree, because this is basically everywhere. Public budgets have been shrinking, inflation rates are going up. This leads to reduction of the possibility of spending, so expenditure reduction. What I would also like to leave on the table is a question. So lack of funding for sure, but is there also a lack of knowledge about all the opportunities that are out there? So I think that with this question, these event that we have been invited to, and I'm very happy to have been part of, I think it could be a starting point, because what we can do in our privileged position is to kind of build that puzzle that would enable all the stakeholders to have a clearer picture of which opportunities are out there. And in this year, 2023, a year of skills and competencies in Europe, I think that this is one of the focuses that we should take. So how do we build capacity? How do we build skills, knowledge in our area? For example, this could be plugged in to the, I noted down the name, the Technical and Vocational School, former Microgrid Academy, because what our colleague was saying is true. We give skills, we give knowledge, we give capacities, but then there is a need to see the tangible outputs that this can produce. And so with crowdfunding, seeing the size, for example, of the monetary grant that has been awarded to the best ideas, if you use those ideas and enable them to run a crowdfunding campaign, wouldn't that be much more rewarding? Or wouldn't it enable many more beneficiaries to have access to funding and test the skills and be aware of the opportunity? And so I think I tried to stay in the timing.
I think it's perfect. It was very interesting. I have a question for you that it's in the chat, but actually reflect the question I had in mind. If you know any example, ongoing or pilot experiments, especially tackling energy poverty, that you can mention. And after this question, I will have a question for the whole audience.
Okay, yes, I actually have a few examples of things that we are actually working on. So one is an ongoing research project that we have under the Horizon 2020 program. It's called Power Poor, and it's basically looking at how we could support the tackling of energy poverty in different areas in Europe through the inclusion, among others, of crowdfunding. So this is our flagship project in this sense. But then we are also working, for example, we don't know, we hope we will be working, because for now it's just a pilot idea, on two different things. So one is, how can we use crowdfunding to foster the establishment of energy communities? So there we will see the involvement of different stakeholders, public authorities, companies.